Although it's not a rule that universally applies, the general consensus is that the best superhero movie adaptations are faithful to the comic books they're based on, and that includes in terms of the character costumes. Characters who look nothing like their comic book counterparts tend to be the ones that are most often criticized. Dr. Doom in the recent Fantastic Four reboot, the awful version of Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and Galactus in Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, for example. In this video, we'll take a look at some of the best examples of movie characters whose looks were taken straight off the pages of their source material. Here are 10 superhero movies that nailed the costumes according to the comics. Batman in Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice really wasn't received very well in general, but one of the aspects of the movie that was deemed to be a success was Ben Affleck's Batman, and one of the main reasons for that was undoubtedly the character's look. Batfleck's costumes, both his regular costume with the gray bodysuit and black logo cape and cowl, and the powered armor he wore to face the Man of Steel, were taken straight off the pages of the Dark Knight Returns comic book miniseries. Given that the Dark Knight Returns is generally seen as one of the best Batman stories of all time, it was a smart move on Warner Brothers' part to take influence from it. Superman in Superman the movie. Christopher Reeve's Superman is still arguably the most iconic superhero of all time. Having first appeared in 1978's Superman the movie, he went on to appear as the Man of Steel on 3 more occasions, and he always looked as if he were taken straight out of the pages of DC Comics. Looking back, what Reeves' Superman wore was definitely a little bit cheesy, and the comic book version of the Kryptonian hero has been updated to something a little cooler since then. But the blue suit with red cape and red trunks on the outside was undoubtedly totally nailed when compared to the classic comic book costume. Supergirl in Supergirl. The Supergirl movie is proof that just because a costume is good, it doesn't necessarily mean that the character wearing it, or the movie they're in, is going to be good as well. Helen Slater portrayed the titular character, and she looked just like her comic book counterpart, much like how her character's cousin did in the Superman movie, but she was terrible. Her costume was essentially the same as Superman's on the top half, with a skirt in place of Superman's red trunks and blue leggings on the bottom half, just like in the comics. However, the movie was awful, her acting was terrible, and quite frankly, she was just irritating. Deadpool in Deadpool. After the monstrosity that was the X-Men Origins Wolverine version of Deadpool, fans of the character were eager to see a more faithful adaptation on the big screen, and 2016 provided them with that. Ryan Reynolds took on the role again, but this time it wasn't a horrible Frankenstein's monster version of Deadpool, it was actually the merc with a mouth down to a T. Reynolds is Deadpool, and the fact that his costume was exactly like the classic comic book version really helped matters. The unmistakable red bodysuit with black trim was totally on point, and we can't wait to see him in the sequel. Iron Man in Iron Man. If there's one modern comic book movie character who could rival Christopher Reeves' Superman as the most iconic of all time, it's undoubtedly Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. The flagship star of the Marvel Cinematic Universe first appeared in 2008's Iron Man, and has gone on to appear in a further 6 films, including cameos, with several more to come. Part of his success as a character is certainly down to his look. Everything from the red and gold Iron Man armor to the suits and goatee of the Tony Stark character is lifted straight from the pages of Marvel Comics, and it obviously helps that Downey Jr. has totally made the role his own as well.
I am Iron Man.
Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War. In fairness to Sony, every movie version of Spider-Man's costume prior to his debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was pretty damn good, especially the black one in Spider-Man 3, but none were more faithful to the comics than the one worn by Tom Holland. Holland made his debut as the character in Captain America Civil War, wearing a classic bright red and blue number, complete with the small Spider-Man emblem from the character's first appearance on panel, as well as eyes that expand and contract to express emotion. It really is the best Spidey suit yet, and we can't wait to see what Marvel Studios are going to do with it going forward. Loki in Thor. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is actually quite rich in comic faithful costumes, but we don't want to saturate this list with them, so we'll just include a couple of heroes and one villain. The villain in this instance being Tom Hiddleston's Loki. Loki first appeared in 2011's Thor movie, and his battle armor, the one with the antler-like horns on the helmet, was beautifully adapted from the classic comic book version's costume. It looked awesome, and everything about it screamed God of Mischief. He went on to wear it again in 2012's The Avengers, and will no doubt don it in future MCU installments.
Enough! I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
Hit Girl in Kick-Ass. Most superhero outfits are very slick and polished, which in many cases leaves you wondering how the people wearing them even made them. But the costumes in Kick-Ass were more grounded in how you'd expect them to be in the real world. That obviously makes them easier to reproduce, but it was still impressive how well the Kick-Ass movies depicted them. That being said, the most impressive costume in comparison to the source material in the Kick-Ass movies was undoubtedly Hit Girl's. It's exactly as it was in the comic books, emphasizes her limited resources and manages to effortlessly convey her as both a little girl and a deadly killer, which is quite the achievement when you think about it. Rorschach in Watchmen. 2009's Watchmen was actually pretty superb in terms of its costumes in general. Every character looked impressive and fairly strongly resembled their comic book counterparts, but none were quite as intricately faithful to the source material as that of Rorschach. Granted, a costume that consists of a brown trench coat, a matching fedora, and an inkblot mask isn't exactly difficult to replicate in live action, but that shouldn't take away from the fact that it was done so well in this movie, and it certainly didn't stop Jackie Earle Haley from looking badass as hell in the role. Hellboy in Hellboy. Like Rorschach's costume, Hellboy's is pretty simple. It's essentially just a coat, a pair of trousers, and sometimes a t-shirt or vest. But don't let that detract from the fact that the Hellboy movies that starred Ron Perlman got the characters look exactly as it is in the source material. Then, when you factor in the fact that Perlman also had to undergo an intense makeup and prosthetic makeover to get into costume in the first place, Hellboy definitely deserves a place on this list. He looked awesome and every bit as cool as the character does in his titular Dark Horse comic books. Thanks for watching our video about superhero movies that nailed the costumes according to the comics. Did you enjoy this video? Which other examples do you think should have been included? Have your say in the comments section below, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for more great videos like this one.